on is where's the funding going to come from? So again, this webinar today is brought to you by HiSET, the HiSET program. We're proud to be a sponsor of today's program and today's webinar, and we're proud to be the fastest growing high school equivalency exam on the market today. And so for all of you who are HiSET states, you know what a great benefit we bring to your students. Those of you who are not, then please hold on to my contact information at the end of this slide deck. Would love to talk to you about becoming a HiSET state. So let's go. The need for integrated education and training. These are all numbers that you may be aware of, maybe numbers that you've seen before. You go back to 1972, you almost had 15% of high school students dropping out every year. Goes up to 1990, we've dropped that down to 12%, and then now the most recent numbers that we have here of 2014, the dropout rate's down to 7%. It looks like we're making great progress, and we are, but still have 3 million students, almost 3 million students every year leaving high school without a diploma. So what does that look like in real life situations? Well, a high school dropout makes average annual earnings of $20,000, just a little above that. High school graduates, a little over $36,000. That's according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics 2015 data. That's $16,000. I mean, that is life-changing financial impact for individuals, for their families, for their children and grandchildren. That's the difference between someone being able to afford a roof over their head, clothes on their back, food on their table. That's not even to mention the support that those parents who have their high school diploma can give to their students to make sure that those, or to their children rather, to make sure that they as students go on and are successful and go down that same path of success to be a high school graduate and hopefully education on beyond. As you see there, college graduates making over $70,000 on average, and then lifetime earnings $260,000 to $480,000 more than people without a diploma. That's huge impact. So that's why whenever we look at adult education inside your state, we have to go beyond. It can't be K-12 2.0. We can't try to go back and recreate that K-12 experience. We have to be able to look one step beyond that. Are you going to provide academic training? Absolutely you are. But you have to go beyond that and really look at yourself, look at your program, the things that you do day in and day out as a vital component, again, to your state's overall workforce development infrastructure. So I kind of boiled down what WIOA is and what it was intended to be in this statement. WIOA was designed to provide a framework and funding source through which states could build a workforce development infrastructure, providing employers with a skilled workforce and citizens with meaningful employment. Again, that's the whole point. I always would tell our teachers across Tennessee, I would go in and I would ask them and say, you know, okay, so what's the whole point? Why are you here? What is your ultimate objective? And so often I would get the answer of, well, it's to get our students a diploma. And I'd say, nope, wrong answer. And that really perplexed a lot of them, except I went on to explain your whole objective of what we're doing here is to get these students, get these adult learners a job, a career. Now, it just so happens that they really, really need that high school diploma, that credential or high school equivalency to make that next step to a job or a career. But I think it's important that every step along the academic path that you're leading them down, we always keep the ultimate goal in mind that this is not just education for education's sake. This is education with the intent and ultimate goal of producing an individual who is employable and can go into a workplace and be a contributor on day one, both with their academic skills as well as with their workforce preparation skills, or as we'll talk more about today, as those are vital components of an IET. So the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act was signed into law by President Obama on July 22nd of 2014. It was designed to coordinate and align the federally funded workforce development initiatives of Title I. The three programs of Title I are employment and training services for adults, second for dislocated workers, and third for youth. And then Title II, of course, is the AFLA grant, Adult Education and Family Literacy Act, which is most likely where most of you find yourselves. And Title III, the Wagner-Pizer Employment Services, that's going to be where your funding for the American Job Centers comes from, and employment services there. And then Title IV, the vocational rehab folks who help in such a vital way. So one of the important advances that really came about with WIOA is that each of those core partners, and again, let me actually go back. Let's take one more look at that. Again, look at this. What's the title? Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. What do we have? We've got employment and training services with adults, dislocated workers, and youth. You've got Wagner-Pizer Employment Services. You've got vocational rehabilitation, which is all about getting folks prepared to either enter or re-enter the workforce. And then all of a sudden in there, you've got AFLA. Again, if this isn't just screaming out to us what the folks in Washington were intending whenever they developed this law, that adult ed is really part of your state's workforce development infrastructure. We are really providing folks with skills that they can take into the workforce. Again, not just K-12 2.0, which K-12 is a wonderful, amazing thing, but there's some students that it's not for them, and it didn't work out for them. So many of them, sometimes it's just a bonehead decision, but most of the time I have found that it's really just people are victims of their circumstances, and they end up in situations that they didn't choose, but they're there, and they have made the brave decision that they're going to overcome all of that. They're going to come back, and they are going to get their education because they want to see better in their life, and they want to see better in the lives of their children, and we really have to meet them there and take the rest away. So, again, one of the big things that came about with WIOA are the common performance measures across all of those core partners. Everyone is working toward the same end goal. One of those, want to make sure that our constituents, customers, students, whatever you want to call them, participants, the people that are in your program need to enter employment during the second quarter after leaving the program. They want to make sure not only they get a job, but they keep a job. So they want to look at it again during the fourth quarter after they leave your program, make sure they're still employed or entering employment at least within that time frame. They want to make sure that they're getting good jobs with livable wages. So they're going to look at the median earnings of those individuals during the second quarter. They want to look at the effectiveness in serving employers. So we should always keep in mind we want to be able to look out and make sure that what we're doing actually is serving the needs of employers, which means, hey, we got to go talk to employers, see what it is that they need, and do the best we can to craft our programs and our service delivery models in a way that will serve them. There's come out some federal regs that do a better job of defining what effectiveness in serving employers actually means, but I will be the first to admit to you, in my opinion, there's still some ambiguity in the actual definition there. But again, I think if you keep that ultimate goal, that ultimate idea that we're serving the employers, we want to craft a program that meets their needs. Therefore, you have to communicate with them to find out what those needs are. And IET is a huge step in satisfying this particular performance measure. Then I think you'll be on the right track. Again, we want to look and make sure that our folks are obtaining a post-secondary credential or a secondary credential or its equivalent within the first year. Again, that was a huge initiative in our program in Tennessee. wanted to make sure we got those graduates because I always said, and it's probably not original to me, but adult education is the key that unlocks the door of opportunity. I talked to a gentleman that owned a Dairy Queen, just a fast food restaurant here in Tennessee. I asked him, how many jobs do you have that do not require at minimum a high school diploma or equivalency? Blew my mind when the gentleman came back and he said, 0, have no jobs. He said, I'll hire, a high school student that's on summer break. But if you're talking about somebody that the high school experience has come and gone, they've dropped out, he said, I'm not even going to interview them. I said, really? That's fascinating. You won't even let them go in and push a broom. And he said, nope, not even the folks cleaning up the floor are going to come into this Dairy Queen without a high school diploma or its equivalent. Absolutely blew my mind. Again, highlighting the importance of getting those students through and serving them in the most effective and efficient manner possible. And then finally, on the performance measures, they need to be enrolled in a program leading to a post-secondary credential or employment. That is where IET is going to play a very critical role. So, the Tennessee experience, we were very fortunate in Tennessee. All of our core partners, all of those titles are housed, including Title II with adult education, were housed in the Tennessee Department of Labor and Workforce Development. Everything except vocational rehab was there. That helped a lot with communication and with planning. Also, you go out into the local programs, and adult education is co-located with the core partners in the American Job Centers. And that's not just necessarily the minimum requirement of an electronic presence. Most of the time, if not in all, whether it's a comprehensive or an affiliate AJC, we're talking actually holding classes for students in those American Job Centers. That was a really great thing for us, we thought, because it helped our programs. It kept getting foot traffic, for one, in the AJC, but it also helped to really wrap our students in these services provided through WIOA so that we could meet them whatever their need happened to be. We had a program there that was prepared to really take them where they needed to go to become graduates and hopefully go on to post-secondary and different job training. Also, Tennessee developed a unified data system with a common intake process among Title I, II, and III partners. The unemployment insurance program also worked through that system, and Tennessee's JobsForTN.gov program was part of the unified system. The Jobs for TN was like Tennessee's version of Monster.com. It was our job search engine. So where employers could put their jobs on there, they could specify exactly what skills they were looking for, and then applicants or participants could put up their resumes and fill out exactly what skill sets they possessed. And that way employers could search for them, they could search for employers. The system could actually do those searches for employers automatically and to send them a list of resumes of qualified individuals. And again, it being tied in with the unemployment insurance program that allowed folks that were unemployed to do their job searches, and it satisfied that requirement for the continued unemployment benefits. Of course, the whole idea was that those wouldn't last near as long because they're actively searching for jobs right there at that one-stop database. And so I got a question here. What's the name of the shared system? It's actually it's from a company called Geographic Solutions. So GSI is the company that produced this system and built it out. And it's actually, it's working very well, collecting all the information that is necessary among the partners, but it also, again, allows for the free flow of communication, allows for leveraging resources, seamless cross-program referrals. It was very easy to be able to move a student from what services they're getting with Title II over to services with Title I or Title III or vice versa. Again, it's just a really I think the most important part, a real hassle-free experience for the constituent. So that was some of the things that we did here in Tennessee that we found effective and beneficial for the participants. So let's go on to what you came to listen to anyway, Integrated Education and Training, IET. What is it? Well, first, let's talk about what employers are looking for. In my job as the state director of adult ed in Tennessee, I had the privilege to be able to travel all across our state, and I asked employers every single time, what are you looking for in an employee? What are you looking for in a potential employee? At first start, I'll say we're looking for a secondary credential. Even if it's an equivalency, we're happy with that. We want a secondary credential. Second, they want work experience. And third, they want employability skills. Again, that's going to be soft skills, 21st century skills. There's lots of different definitions for employability skills. Bottom line, this is how I like to define it. If you have a PhD, but you don't realize you have to get into work, if work starts at 8 o'clock, you need to be there ready to begin work at 8 o'clock. You need to stay all day. You don't need to take a 2-hour lunch break. And you don't need to punch your boss in the nose whenever he says something you don't like. If you don't know all that, then your PhD really isn't going to help you when it comes to keeping and holding and being effective in a job. So those are employability skills. A little bit of a reach, a stretch on the example there, but I think you might get the point. Integrated Education and Training checks all the boxes, gets everything that an employer is looking. I'll tell you, there's actually a fourth. They wanted somebody that can pass a drug test. Unfortunately, I'm not sure, other than incarceration, that you're going to be able to really affect that quite as much. But hopefully this is all part of an overall program that really reaches down and meets their needs so that those other problems don't pop up with that particular individual. And again, at the end of the assembly line, after everybody has had their part, after everybody has helped out, you end up with an employable individual, which is, in my opinion, the ultimate goal. So what's the definition of an IET? A service approach that provides adult education and literacy activities concurrently and contextually with workforce preparation activities and workforce training for a specific occupation or occupational cluster for the purpose of educational and career advancement. That just screams that a lawyer wrote that. So let's break it down a little bit. You got your three main components that are highlighted there. So let's move on to there. Adult education and literacy. I'm not going to spend a lot of time describing that because it's what you've been doing for years. That's really just your bread and butter, your go-to. It's what you are all experts in. Next, workforce preparations. Again, it's those employability skills first and foremost. Soft skills. It's just being able to work as a team, to exhibit professionalism. Again, all of those skills, communication skills that make someone a good, productive employee. That may be one that you have incorporated. If so, kudos, you're ahead of the game. If not, then this gives you a fantastic opportunity to start integrating that into what you do with your students day in and day out. There are a lot of different programs out there that teach those. Again, when you get to employability skills, that's going to be a real hands-on type endeavor to really get those not just exposed to the student, but to get them ingrained into who they are and what they do in a workforce situation. Finally, the biggie, workforce training. This is really where the rubber meets the road when it comes to IET. It's the hard part. And again, we're going to really break down workforce training and talk about that in a little more detail in the time that we have available to us. Again, before we move on, these three components of an IET must be done concurrently and contextually. Concurrently means you have to be doing these at the same time. So while you're providing your academic training, while you've got your students in, you've done your NRS assessment, you've found out what educational functioning level they are, you're providing them with standards-based education. I know I had some eyes roll when you heard that. No, CCRS is a good thing. That's what's going. That's the bumpers when you go bumper bowling. Those are the bumpers that keeps you in the alley. So make sure that you do that. Went to a class once upon a time. Had a teacher. She was a fantastic teacher. Went for an hour teaching eloquently about dangling past participles. And while that, I'm sure, is very, very important, and I'm sure I've got some language arts teachers on the line that are very interested in that particular subject, it's probably not going to reach even the top 50 things that should be a priority for the adult learner. And so the standards really give us that focus to be able to get the student what they need in the most effective and efficient way possible. When you're doing that academic training, it's probably important to sprinkle in some of these employability skills with the workforce preparation while you do it. Many of your reading passages in the ELA lesson, perhaps they could talk about professionalism. Perhaps they could talk about communication skills and how to work as a team. Perhaps part of your instructional methodology could have teamwork or project-based learning to be able to have your students working together as a team, taking instruction from the teacher, taking direction from the teacher. There's lots of ways that you can work in employability skills. And then finally, we're going to talk more about workforce training and how to make that concurrent with these other components to make an IET. But again, that's really beginning with the end in mind. It's looking in your community, finding out what type jobs are available, what type skills are required for your students to be able to fill those jobs, and then working with those local employers to build into your curriculum the type training that actually needs to take place to be able to make your student qualified to actually fill those jobs. Again, it doesn't mean that while you're teaching a math lesson on fractions that you also need to be teaching skills for a tool and die specialist. But it means that your student needs to at least be what you might consider co-enrolled in programs that are going to equip him or her with these skills. So just think of it as students now who are in high school, who are co-enrolled maybe in their local community college or university, so that they're taking high school classes, but they're taking post-secondary classes all at the same time prior to the student actually earning their high school diploma. This is going to be very similar to that. You got folks that within the same time frame, maybe not necessarily the same moment in time, but the same time frame, that they are co-enrolled in programs that are going to equip them not only with the adult education and literacy activities, but with workforce preparation activities and workforce training activities. And then contextually, my thoughts on that are going to be that's all really breaking down, looking at that particular industry or industrial cluster of job training skills that may be that the student may be working toward ultimately. So let's look a little closer at workforce training. Workforce training, I believe, transforms adult education, again, from just purely an academic provider to a powerful component of the state's workforce development infrastructure. In Tennessee, we most often work to partner with employers who have immediate needs. You go around, you'll find employers all the time that are saying, I'm trying to hire some people. I'm trying to hire some people. Well, I always, we focused mainly on high school equivalency in Tennessee, and I always told them, I said, if you're looking for a good employee, then let me tell you about the high school equivalency graduate. and they're hardworking. They're folks that have real life experience. I remember on those three things that the employers were looking for: workforce or work experience was one of the things that they were looking for, and soft skills or employability skills were some of the things they were looking for. And secondary education is one of the things they were looking for. Well, if they're a graduate, then they're already checked the box for secondary education, but they've been out into the world. They've had real life experiences. Many of them have had jobs, and maybe they didn't turn out all that well. Maybe they've had to learn things the hard way. But either way, that's real work experience. So they've come to you and they've realized that at some point, whether it's their fault or not, whether it's just the environment that they were in, they made a mistake at some point in time. And they have come back and said, I want to rectify that mistake. I want to restart my education. I want to get it right this time. And they walk through the door. There's no truancy officer that's going to go pick them up off the street if they're not in class. They have come because they choose to be there. They go and they're working in the classroom. They're taking direction from their instructor. They're studying. They're doing some study work on their own time as well as in class. They're working in groups within their class. They're communicating. They know that when class begins, they need to be there. They know they need to be there until class is over. They're, again, doing this all on their own. What's that sound like? It sounds like somebody with work experience. It sounds like somebody with real life experience. It sounds like someone who actually has developed these workforce preparation skills, these employability skills, and they're ready to go to work. They're motivated, and they have sat for a high stress, high stakes exam, and they've come out on the other side victorious. Again, whenever I go to partner with employers, they're telling me they're looking for employees. I send them straight to my local adult ed program. I said, you got to see these people. They're going to be great employees for you. So, one of the things we always offered, and I know most of you do this as well, actually setting up at the employer site, set up classes right there on site. We always try to integrate the workforce preparation curriculum into the academic curriculum in some of the ways that I described earlier, and also try to integrate the workforce training curriculum selected by the employer. We try to put that in there as well. Again, you're not going to know a lot about the workforce training curriculum, what that needs to look like, without sitting down and having a real discussion with the employer. Usually it's going to be with their HR folks, and that is all okay. Sit down, have those conversations. If they keep putting you off, then you just keep showing up until they realize that you've got something really valuable to offer them. I always marketed it to them as a workforce upgrade. I would say, listen, this is you investing in your workforce. Look at all the money that you spend on training for your employees year in and year out. This is nothing less than that. It's just investing in them, getting them some academic skills that will make them better employees. And by the way, it builds a bench, for your organization, so that if you need to make hires in leadership positions and supervisory positions, you've got folks that already know what it's like to work in your organization. You've got folks that you have already observed their work ethic. You've already kicked the tires on this one, and you know that they're a good employee. Well, now you've given them the skills and the credentials to actually be able to be promoted within your organization without having to hire someone from the outside and start from scratch and compound your training expense associated with that hire. So again, this is a really great thing. Forklift operators, in textile industry, tool and die, logistics, those are all things in Tennessee that we, all occupations that we saw with folks, that employers that really wanted to invest in their workforce. And this was a great way to introduce an IET, or integrated education and training, into that program. Again, we offered right there on site. And, I can't stress enough, all has to be concurrent and contextual. So I'm going to read through this list. It's going to sound a little bit boring, but I'm going to try to do it with as much inflection and entertaining quality as possible. But pay attention, because this is going to be a very vital piece of making a program, a workforce training program, that is going to ultimately fit within the definition of an IET. Must include one of the following: occupational skills training, including training for non-traditional employment, on-the-job training. It looks a lot like an apprenticeship there. Incumbent worker training, that's one of those things that those Title I funds might be able to be used for. We will come back to that later. Programs that combine workplace training with related instruction, which may include cooperative education programs. We have some employers in Tennessee who actually begin their own little academies, if you will, where they provide training. It's great to be able to partner with those because they're giving them that technical training, but many times you can give them concurrently the academic training and partner with them to create IETs, give the employer, again, a bigger bang for their buck. Training programs operated by the private sector, again, just like we talked there with employers setting up their own academies. Skill upgrading and retraining, entrepreneurial training. That's an interesting one. Haven't really seen anybody do that, but I can definitely see where some folks it would be a great service. Transitional jobs, job readiness training, customized training conducted with a commitment by an employer or group of employers to employ an individual upon completion of training and or apprenticeships. This is one that I found really interesting. It's something that I actually saw happening at one of our community colleges here in Tennessee, where the community college, their career and tech office, decided they wanted to create an industrial readiness training program. So they would reach out to the local employers and they would say, okay, I know you're looking for employees. How many do you want? They'd say, well, we're looking for 20 employees, or we're looking for 30 employees. A lot of times this may be a new company or business that is just moving to town and ramping up on a mass scale their operations. And they say, okay, great. You need 20 employees. We're going to enroll 25 individuals into this class. And it's going to have your employability skills component. It's going to have an academic component. And it's going to have specific training to your specific needs within your industry. And you tell us what that is. And they worked with that employer to create a curriculum, and they had the equipment on site to be able to bring these 25 students in. They go through this course. Usually it was an 8-10 week course. Of course, it can be whatever it needs to be to satisfy the needs of the employer. But there was always a commitment on the part of the employer to not only pay the tuition for the students that were going through that program, but a commitment that 20 of the 25 would actually go on and be hired there in the company. A great way, and the employer was always invited to actually come in to the classes during that 10-week period, and they actually got to know the students, and they actually got to see them at work. They got to see them working together in a cooperative way. They got to see them taking direction from the instructor. They got to see the way they showed up to the program, the way they were dressed, the way they acted, the way they conducted themselves, the professionalism that they exhibited. They got to see all of this over this 10-week period, and then 20 or more of the 25 actually received jobs. And it was always very, very likely that even the 5 that didn't receive a job with that employer, there was someone else that they were then prepared to go in and be a very attractive option for another employer to bring in and to hire. Again, so that was always my favorite example of really IET in action, was the industrial readiness training provided in some of our local community colleges. Again, it's a great thing, could be replicated anywhere. The main thing that you have to overcome is the educational facilities' temptation to tell the employer what the employer needs, rather than to listen to the employer tell them what it is that they need. That's just one of those things. Maybe that's a Tennessee-specific thing. I seriously doubt it. So how do you choose a workforce training program? You've got lots of occupations out there, lots of jobs that need to be filled. How do you choose which one you want to partner up with to build your IET? Well, first and foremost, I say go to the local business partner. Let them tell you what their need is for skilled labor and start there. Next place you can go is to check out the eligible training provider list. All Title I workforce training funds flow through the eligible training provider list. Your local workforce boards are going to identify, based on the local workforce needs, the local labor market data, what those in-demand occupations are. They're then going to find trainers in those areas. They're going to put them on the eligible training provider list, and those funds are going to go to pay the tuition or expenses associated with eligible Title I individuals to go through and receive that training. It's a great place. The work's already done. Just go find that in your local area, and even the funding is attached to that. We'll talk about that more directly. Labor market data. You can do your own research. That'd be a great place. I've got the hyperlink there for the Bureau of Labor Statistics. That page is where you can go to any of the states, find your labor market information. If you're just real wonky like that, that'd be hours of fun digging through that information and finding out what occupations are in demand in your local area that you really need to focus in on providing the training for your students to make that next step and to build that into your IET. At HiSET, we also believe in making that next step. We're obviously really excited about folks whenever they're able to pass their high school equivalency exam, whenever they're able to get that diploma. But we also do our best to remind them that this isn't the end of your story. It's just the beginning. It's just the first chapter. There's so much more left to go. And so we provide them with this report. Each of our graduates receives via email a report based on their zip code. It pulls what occupations, you'll see in the right column there, what occupations there are in their area, how many annual job openings there are in each of those occupations, and then the average wage for each of those occupations. So again, it's kind of spurring that individual, says, okay, you've got a great academic achievement here. What's next on your list? What is it that you want to do next? And let's help you find a way to get there. The next page of the report also pulls, based on their zip code, it pulls the training, universities, community colleges, or other private training organizations that actually will give them the skills to do the jobs that are listed in their community on that prior page. And then, of course, it even gives them the link to start their FAFSA application to be able to get funding to go to those training organizations. And then, of course, with their IET, there's a lot of funding options there as well. So that's kind of what we try to do here at HiSET to assist you with your integrated education and training, to assist you with getting your students not only to become graduates, which we do want, but also to go on and become employees, self-sufficient, and really be able to live out the American dream on their own terms. It's a pretty awesome thing to watch it all happen beginning to end. So, as it is in most areas of education, that's a great idea. Who's going to pay for it? A major hurdle for IET is always going to come back to the funding. It's always, that's great. You want us to do more. We understand. We're in education. We've seen that before. Where's the money to support that? Well, to answer that in a very brief way, they didn't add any more money for that. So you have to be creative. So where are you going to look for money? Again, let's start with the employers or community partnerships. Again, that's a great place to look. There's some philanthropic organizations that are out there that are working with students or individuals, adults, to get them training to be able to fill jobs in their community. That's always a good first place to look. Next place to look are those Title I workforce training funds. So those can be leveraged for individuals who are eligible for their youth, adult, or incumbent worker funds. here's something that I don't think a lot of folks know is that your IET, your Integrated Education and Training Program, can actually be submitted and approved and included on the eligible training provider list. So you could actually receive training, or you receive Title I funds for individuals who come in who qualify as eligible for the youth, adult, or income at worker programs there under Title I. You could actually have them coming in and you receive funding for them to receive academic training in your Title II program. Or you can also add on your components of an IET, your workforce training program, and you can access those Title I funds, but you have for your IET, your workforce training program. But again, your IET has to be included on the eligible training provider list, or the ETPL. So that's actually one that I think a lot of people overlook, a lot of people don't really spend a lot of time with, but it's something that I would definitely encourage you to look into, to sit down and talk with your workforce partners, your Title I partners, and really, figure out how this can work. And again, go back to one of the earlier slides in the WIOA section of this presentation, those common performance measures. That applies to all core partners. So if you are able to get a Title II participant, a secondary credential, if you're able to get them into post-secondary training or employment with a good, higher median wage, then that's going to be important to your Title I partners as well. That's going to be important to your Wagner-Pfizer Title III partners as well. And so if you all can work together, leverage your funds together, then you can all reach those common performance measures together. And again, ultimately, it's not about the numbers, it's about the participants, it's about the people, and being able to leverage those funds in an effective and efficient way. That's really what we're here for. That's what it's all about, and everybody wins. Another way to look at funding, look at the Pell Grant program, the ability to benefit funds for higher ed training. There's a lot of apprenticeship funds. You can look at the registered apprenticeship and pre-apprenticeship programs. There's a lot of funding out there for those, and those qualify as workforce training programs. There's lots of programs out there for veterans. Just do some searches. Go find your local veterans rep. Learn more about the programs available to them. Sometimes it's not necessarily training specific for post-secondary opportunities, but oftentimes it can actually even be funding that would basically just kind of help them with their day-to-day living expenses while they're doing training. And again, those are funds that are necessary as well to help folks really get on their feet so that they can actually take time out of the workforce to be able to get the training that they need to enter back into the workforce, into jobs that pay a livable wage, that are more than just jobs, that they're actually careers, and then they're jobs that aren't going to go away just as soon as there's a downtick in the economy. You can look at funds and programs through TANF and or SNAP. A lot of people don't think of this as something that would apply, but actually even unemployment benefits, you'd be surprised how many people walk through your door that may be eligible for unemployment benefits, but they've had trouble or they don't know how to access those benefits. Again, that could be a real source of income to allow them to, take care of their week in and week out needs for a period of time until they receive the training that they need to go and re-enter the workforce. Again, there's Carl Perkins funding, the Wagner-Pfizer Act, Title III funds. You can not necessarily use those as training, but you can leverage the funds that are available there to the staff so that the staff could analyze and provide feedback on labor market information through Wagner-Pfizer. They could serve as career counselors within your program through Wagner-Pfizer. Again, it's a lot of really good opportunities. There's the Trade Adjustment Assistance Program, up to 130 weeks of income support for workers who pursue extended education, and that's for jobs that are lost due to foreign trade. Again, there's just tons of things out there that are available for funding to come in to assist your students in not only getting the funds to get training as part of your IET, but also to get the funds to take care of, to really wrap them in support services so that they are free to actually do that training and earn credentials that will ultimately help them enter and succeed in the workforce. So in Tennessee, we use a variety of methods in our funding. One, some use Title II funds themselves. Those can be used. I know they are not out there in abundance, but usually those are kind of used for the workforce prep curriculum and software. At least that's how we use that typically in Tennessee if we're going to. The Title I Adult and Dislocated Worker Funds and Youth Funds, again, utilizing that eligible training provider list, as well as just being able to make and receive referrals from the different core partners. Again, that also goes back to the unified data system that we employ. Employer and post-secondary partnerships. Again, I've already discussed the community college system that does the industrial readiness training course. That's an excellent opportunity. The same type thing could happen with directly with an employer or with any other post-secondary training organization. You just the money's there. There's really no reason why they would not be interested in pursuing it. You can provide students. Other organizations can provide the money. And again, it all ends up providing training that leads to employment for in-demand occupations. It's just a win-win for everyone. In Tennessee, we have something a little unique. We call it the Tennessee Promise and the Wilder-Nafee Act, or the Tennessee Reconnect program. So it's part of the governor's Drive to 55 initiative. Basically, he's hoping that by 2025, that 55% of Tennessee's workforce will have at least a 2-year or greater credential. Basically says that any student can attend a 2 years of community college or technical school for free. Tennessee Promise is more aimed toward those 18-year-olds that are just graduating right out of the K-12 system. The Wilder-Nafee or Reconnect funds are really going more toward the folks that have been out and the adult learner that most of us serve. Again, that's something specific to Tennessee. It was a really great deal. It all comes from our lottery scholarship funds. We were bringing in more than we were paying out, and so the governor took a portion of that, created a new trust fund, and the interest off of that trust fund actually pays the entirety of this whole program. It's been a game changer in Tennessee, and it came at absolutely no increase in the tax burden for any Tennessean. Pretty awesome program. There may be some things that you can work with your state to look into opportunities similar as well. All right, so we've made it here to the end. I know that we've got about 5 minutes left. We're going to try to get to some questions in the time we have allotted. And for those who have questions that we're not able to get to, then please let us, or please know that we will do our best to reach back out to you and to communicate those via email. So I'm going to do my best to figure out how to get to that. And again, just while I'm looking at this, if you'd like any additional information or have any questions, please feel free to contact me. That's my number and email address, as well as the HISET events at ets.org. There's somebody that will be there to respond to that. And then, of course, there's the hiset.ets.org website if you'd like to learn more about HiSET. Again, I believe we got we answered what is the name of the shared system or the unified data system. It's created by Geographic Solutions, or GSI. I have a question here. Is this similar to North Carolina Works? I assume NC Works is North Carolina Works. I actually am not familiar with NC Works, so I apologize, Ms. Shaw, for not knowing the answer to that. But you know, a lot of these programs are fairly similar, so it very well could be. Let's see. Is Tennessee one of the states that allows other pathways to HSE? No, it is not. We actually don't have just the high school equivalency route, and in Tennessee we use the HiSET exam to achieve that. All right. How do you work with the ELL population as it relates to IET? I just got to the meeting, so okay. So with ELL, that's a pretty interesting thing to look at there, because the LCE, Integrated English Language and Civics Education, IET is actually a mandatory component of that funding stream from Octave. And so it would work in the same way, really, except you have a different population that you're working with. So I don't really know how to go into any more detail than that, except that it's even more important with that population because it's a mandatory part of that funding stream. And so again, I would definitely encourage you. You know, first you go to your local employers, and you identify some jobs and some skills that they have a need to fill, and then you work with them again concurrently and contextually to be able to equip your students, your ELL or ILCE students, to actually be able to meet those needs. And again, it's the components are the same, the definition is the same. All of it. It's you do the adult education and literacy activities. You do the workforce preparation. You do the workforce training. Again, it looks exactly the same as far as the components. But again, you know, whether you're working with the ELL population or if you're working with a low literacy population or you're working with high functioning population, you're going to have to do some tailoring to actually meet their needs. But again, the actual components, how you break it down, is going to be the same. I believe we did discuss how we define concurrently. I'll go over it again. Just you're basically looking at it all happens at the same time. You know, maybe not at the very same exact, you know, at the same moment, but it's within the same context of everything going together there and everything happening over the same period of time. So my clock says it is 2 p.m. We do have more questions here. However, I want to be as courteous of your time as I possibly can. So this presentation will go out to each of you that have that were registered for this webinar, and I will do my best to answer the remaining questions that you all submitted when that email goes out. So at this point, I'm going to turn the presentation back over to Sherry. Thank you all for your attendance today, and I hope that we've discussed something that would benefit you in your state as you are setting up your integrated education and training program to serve your students better. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Jason, and thank you everybody for joining us. Again, we will be sending out a follow-up communication that will include a survey for your feedback for this presentation, along with details on how you can obtain a copy of this presentation. Thanks again for your time, and we hope you have a wonderful day.
Ladies and gentlemen, that does conclude today's webinar. You may now disconnect your lines.
Okay, can you guys hear me okay now?
Yeah.
Okay. Some folks, if you guys wanted to stay on, we could talk a little bit more about what you heard or get your thoughts. So we've got Terry.
Oh, sorry.
We got Terry, Christina, Patty, and Sandra all on still.
Mike, will we have access to this recording? Or this
Yeah.
live?
Yeah,
Really
we'll get.
good job.
Whoop. Yeah, we'll get that. Did I lose you guys?
Nope.
Oh, hang on. There we are. Okay. Sorry.
Kind
I don't know what screen you've got, but
of a tan one or?
okay, that's good. I don't have anything to throw up there, so. Yeah, once they send us an email, I'll send that out to you guys. I also recorded it, so I'll try to get it popped out as well onto a portion of our website, and I'll put it under the adult education link, and we'll put an IET list on there for you guys to re-listen. I heard a couple of things that I found interesting. And I'll just go down my list, and then you guys can add anything too, and then we can discuss further. But we are also, the state of Iowa is doing that Geo Solutions piece. So we should have that unified data system for all of us at some point. I don't know enough about how far along we are on it to talk about it, but I do know we're working with it. I know that Lisa Gard is in on that as well. So I know we're corroborating with Iowa Workforce as well as vocational rehabilitation services. A lot of what he had done, I think we've all done several times, some of the information that he went over, but I do like some of the additional pieces that he had. For instance, we do all now know how hard the workforce training piece is going to be. We get that as we all are kind of working through some of our issues. Also, let me pull up a couple other things real quick. So I like the fact that he added in there that the curriculum is set by the employer, because I think some of the issues we've had and some of the things that we're beginning to see and we're beginning to work through is that we need to get in front of the employer, we need to get with the employer, we need to have that dialogue with the employer so that we're building the right, specifically the right IET program with them, for them. And I think that was just really good to know that that's nationally what everyone's expecting to do. The idea to take it even further, and I think Marcella can, because what I heard is Jason said, take it to the human resources folks and keep getting in front of them. That's easier said than done. I understand you have to do that, but because we all live in kind of a smaller microcosm, I don't know what it's like to be in Tennessee, but you can't really go out and bug all of our employers and our HR people. I mean, we really have to have a really specific planned interaction and engagement, and it needs to be positive so it can continue to be ongoing. So those are things I think we need to talk a lot more about and get a better game plan, and we probably need to bring even more people to the table to get that done in some of our programs. I like the fact that he talked about the selling point of IET back to them is that it's a workplace upgrade, and that it's an investment in the employees. And really, when you think about it, it doesn't necessarily cost the employer anything but their time. And the idea that you have to build a trust and a relationship with them. So I like that piece. Were you going to add something, Marcella?
I'm just going to make 2 points because then I have a meeting at 2:15. But towards the end, someone asked a question about ILCE. So I am, like Jason explained, ILCE, IET is required. So the adult education literacy activity within ILCE would be English language acquisition, or ASL. And then you have to make sure that you incorporate contextually and concurrently, keywords, the civics component. So as long as you're incorporating IET and English language acquisition and the civics, that is considered ILCE. I'm still looking for examples nationally to provide to you kind of that model, but the feedback I have received from other states is that everyone is still kind of in the developing phase. So I have a meeting. Ann Weiner from Iowa Central and I were nominated to be a part of this national conversation on ILCE, and the first training or webinar is this Wednesday. So once I get a better idea of those national best practices, we'll make sure that we share those with the field. You guys have any questions or comments on what Jason said?
You know, this is Terry, Mike.
Yeah.
You know, he mentioned concurrently. So that does, if I understood it correctly, concurrently could also mean that they are co-enrolled. Is that, I'm just thinking of an example where we're trying to provide well-being for HiSET students while they're in the HiSET class. So just tentatively, like for example, they would attend HiSET classes in the morning, and then the welding classes would be in the afternoon, like right after lunch. Yeah. Is that, would that fall under the concurrent definition for IET?
Yeah. So the way, and Terry actually wrote that down when he said, think about IET as kind of a student who is currently enrolled in high school, right? And they're taking additional courses, or they're co-enrolled. Yeah, I thought that was, to be honest with you, I thought it was a very simple way to explain it. And I thought, okay, so one of the things that I would encourage all of you to do is, you know, what do you have in your local communities for co-enrollment options for those high school students? And what are some, because I'm assuming the research that went into creating those classes or those components were also based on local need of those businesses. So I would try to figure out what's currently being offered, and could you provide something similar to our adult ed students?
Yeah, and I was wondering if he was kind of referring to, you know, like high school kiddos that they go to high school, but then some of them take college classes, you know, at the same time. And I know, for example, out where I live, the kids, they drive to Atlantic or Harlan for the college classes. So they go to high school during the day. You know, that's kind of the only reference, or the immediate reference that came to mind for me. Yep. You know what I mean? So yeah, I just kind of wondered about that. I mean, I guess I can see, I would think as long as they're studying to do something the same time they're doing their HiSET.
Right. Absolutely.
And Terry, Sandra made a good point on the conversation box. Talks about, yeah, so in addition to the content being provided concurrently, has to be contextualized. So yes, making sure if you're talking about welding, then is that curriculum being contextualized, which I'm sure.
Right, gotcha.
And to throw another wrinkle into all this, our IET programs does not necessarily have to include the HiSET at this point as well. So that may help folks, or may not help folks, as you begin to build these. And Marcella's. The other thing that I wanted to add to the conversation is that I sent a question to them, but they didn't answer it, because it was kind of in response a little bit to what Sandra Lake had sent me this morning, and it's a situation that Christina Martinez is also dealing with, and that's working with smaller IET programs, or really not having anything out there that like his description was, where a manufacturing firm comes to town, you could do 20 to 25 people, boom. Not everybody can do that. So with that on-the-job training piece, part of that can be that customized training piece. So I asked the question, what about these rural areas where maybe you've only got 1 or 2 people that you can really do some sort of a customized training piece with? How is that going to look and how is that going to work? So Sandra and Christine, even Terry, everybody, I mean, those are things that we need to really begin to look at how we're going to do that, so that it's not so difficult to try to say we're doing IET, looking for a 10-person class, those types of things. I think we need to continue to work on providing all 3 of those elements, but that training piece, that end piece, the hard piece, it can be specified to be customized for 1 or 2 people in that area. That's still a needed job in demand area, but just because of what's going on or where you're at, you can't get the larger classroom piece. So hopefully he'll respond back, and that's a conversation I think we all need to continue to have. And I know I'm going to meet with Christina later this week, along with their PACE program, to see if there's things that we can't do in tandem as we look at what we've already done in southeastern Iowa, that outreach of the manufacturing elements. How can we look at some of those other in-demand industries that they're not paying attention to? And then maybe let's just look at the on-the-job training, customized training, Christina, and just see what we can do and how far we can go with it. So. And Christina, you had a question. I don't know. Can I unmute you? You can talk. I can unmute you guys. Maybe not. I don't know. I'll get the feedback. But.
Hello.
Yeah, there you are. So I think on the job training, you can be part of that with some of your funds. The idea though is how is it developed? Who is it working through? Is it an existing program, or is it an IET program that you're just building? So I guess it's going to depend.
The reason that I was asking is because at the NCWE conference, myself and Lene Green out of Region 16 ran into what a missing piece to the puzzle for me for IET has been in our area. We ran into a company that does an online manufacturing type certification. And so we were collecting a lot of information about that and kind of wondering about along with the online certification, they provide like a workbook to do an OJT as part of this certification. The question, I guess, came out, how long is that OJT going to be? And is an individual willing to not be paid for work during that time? Especially if our population that we're working with in Region 16 is really like your unemployed individuals,
Yeah.
They're going to be really struggling with not getting paid, if we run an 8 or 12 week on-the-job training in conjunction with this online manufacturing type certification. That's why I know that Sandra and I forget who else might have asked about the OJT and if they could be paid for that as well in the past, but I wasn't sure.
Well, it depends on a few of the circumstances, and I don't have all that information yet,
okay,
Christina, but can you send that to me so that I can kind of pull what I can get from Iowa Workforce as well and see what we can and can't pay for with regard to the OJT?
Okay, because we were looking at that question also, with a WEP, with the workforce experience, could we work with a company where they could provide a WEP and still have them qualify for an IET?
Is there a job at the end of it?
There'd be the possibility, yes. Does
It'd have to be
I
strong.
mean, does it have to be, do they have to be guaranteed? I guess that's my other question. Do they have to be guaranteed a job or guaranteed an interview for a job?
Well, what you really want to do is, it's really the idea that there's going to be employment at the end of this. That's not the possibility necessarily.
Okay.
As you heard, probably the best piece of the example that Jason gave was, of those 25 people, 20 were guaranteed a job. And he even said most likely that other 5 are going to probably get pulled up into the system somehow. So that's really what the IET is supposed to do, is that you're working directly with the company to ensure that you're providing curriculum for their in-demand jobs. And so
that's where I saw that CNC or a manufacturing credential really kind of taking off in our area, because it was something that they could earn online and get the on-the-job training workbook part of it, so that they would essentially be skilled as if they were a new employee.
Well, again, the idea, I mean, those are great programs. They're going to provide they're going to definitely provide the upskills for them. They're definitely going to provide the educational portion of it. But you still need that tie-in to that local manufacturer, that local industry, that local employer, to guarantee that you're going to pull them up into an occupation. So it's kind of a fine line. They're not bad programs. They're not bad things to have happen. They're going to be good for that person as an experience, but it's an experience, not really employment prospective. So, like I said, send me what you have, so we can at least look more closely at it. The tie-in is going to still have to be employment.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the hard part.
I think that's going to be a really, really difficult sell for us down here in Region 16. You know, in conversation with employers, they were at the spot where they would maybe guarantee them an interview, but not necessarily employment.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the interview is a good piece, but that's not going to really fulfill the IET portion of making sure that they're going to get a job out of that.
Sure.
So if you look at the CNC jobs, the CNA jobs, those individuals are going out and they're getting employment. Manufacturers are kind of waiting, and there's an expectation there. The healthcare systems, there's an expectation that they're going to be brought up into the system. So I'm not saying there's anything wrong with doing that, because they're good for those individuals. But the IET program is a short-term pathway to education and to employment, and the employment has to be at the end of that, or it really is not a good IET piece. So that's the reality. So I'm looking forward to meeting with you and Jared, though, and talking further about it, Christina.
Thanks.
Yeah. Hey, Patty, did you have anything to add? Okay, Terry, anything, final words?
No, I'm just thinking, I think we're going to continue to work with our CE health coordinators. You know, the employment rate in this area is so low.
Yeah.
You know, it makes it tough.
It does. It does, but we can still work on getting all the elements in place. We can still work on getting all that done. It doesn't mean we're not being successful, and it certainly doesn't mean that we're not creating and doing what we need to be doing for the process.
Right.
It's just that the amount of folks that you're going to get successfully employed is not going to be that great, but, you know.
Yeah. Well, and I think that, you know, I think that there are other partners like our CE coordinator. I think that she already has built a good relationship with some of the health businesses in the area. And I think that, you know, they recognize that Iowa Western has a good CNA program, for example. And I think most of the CNA grads, I mean, they do get a job if that's definitely the field they want to go into. So I'm just kind of thinking I really need to rely on some of the outside partners and entities, you know, for this piece. Anyway, I'm just kind of, just thoughts are kind of going around. So
Yeah,
you know.
yeah. I mean, you're right. It's not an easy thing to do, especially when we haven't really done it all together. You know, those pieces are all part of it, and like Christina is putting out there, there's a lot of pieces that sound like it's IET, but without the actual employment piece at the end. They're simply training programs, and they're upskills programs, and they're experience. And it is good to have the experience because everyone needs to have that, but it's the job at the end that really is what we want. So yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Keep plugging along.
Yes, yeah. We'll get back out to you guys, and Christina, send me what you have so I can maybe find some stuff if I have time before I come down Thursday morning, but I'll see what I can come up with. And thanks for listening in. I think there was some good things in there that he talked about. So much appreciation, you guys.
Yeah, it was good, Mike. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.